Sound check. Okay, fuck it. Let's just get into it. Today on CDR, we are doing OK Human by Weezer. And this is the debate. Fucking, I'm gonna lose on this.
Sink knee into Brin over Baroque.
Baroque.
B-A-R-O-Q-U-E. Go from there.
Broke.
Broke.
OK Computer being the 14th album from the pop-punk Weezer, who have seemed to have moved in a more Baroque direction, bringing in a 38-piece orchestra to boost up this classical backing, somewhat of a Broadway musical. Some could say it would be a second act to Radiohead's OK Computer. As we flow into the first song being all my favorite songs, with a simple yet interesting flute intro, I can somewhat describe this as a Disney-like fairy tale entry into more of a modern day twist with heavy cellos and violin, then moving more into eventually the fat bass. With lyrics showing a confused down or depressing River Cuomo, our quasi little friend, a depressing side with River Cuomo, everything now flipping into no longer bringing joy. Not saying the song is bad in any way, but it could be filed along the lines of an anthem and even strapped to be quite a bit of a banger. This song does set it up for what you would think would be a good album. Now, moving on along into Alu Gubi. Matthew's just writing along and ready for his debate to smoke me like the pole he loves. Really working with the violins and the cello with a 4-beat majority of the time, then bringing in the rest of the orchestra just for the chorus and then back to the 4-beat. This kind of does move along in what you would think would be a great extension into the album, really backing on to the first song, while holding out for a short time in the middle for the 38 piece to really get a solo in. This song does show potential with a smooth transition into the third act being Grapes of Wrath, and quite frankly seems to be the last song on this album that really seems to flourish. Now, it is just an extension of the previous song before, except for this time it sounds like they're really looking for an audible sponsorship, naming out stories along the way of Miss Delaware, Moby Dick, 1984, Peter Pan, Catch-22, and the most fable of all, Lord of the Rings. This really is just another sponsorship for the rest of the team. Moving into Numbers, which kind of dives in sort of a more sad and slower song, still being backed by the orchestra. Just remember this, as I will get to the point of the whole thing at the end. This is where it really starts to go downhill for me. Touching into what I would see as a strong topic of numbers, or closer to labels, that becoming more of a problem in today's life and less important for the TikTokers and the Instagram influencers, and for the more important and the school crushing system placing out what IQs really need to be. But coming to the end of this and all along, it's really just a nice little sing-along. Moving into probably my favorite song on the album, being Playing My Piano, and really this is just a half parody with a Tim Minchin S involved. We're using the whole range of the keys from the piano with a little bit of spice from the French horn before orchestra joins in. With the classic lines of Kim Jong-un could blow up my city and I wouldn't know because I'm playing my piano. Really does do a number and hit the soft spots in your heart. This being what I would consider most pianists would be happy to learn and sing along just because they love playing their piano. As we move into Mirror Image, which just seems like to me is just part 2 Playing My Piano, which thank God it's only 1 minute and 20 seconds. Screens. Now we're really moving into tough topics here. The storyline of what would be people of all ages, from youngers, even the elders, not being able to escape this line of technology just grabbing on and holding them, pulling them into the screen where they can't even resist, to the 90 or 80-year-old next door neighbor being stuck playing solitaire and everyone else is sitting scrolling through their social, liking, hating, and just trolling. Fun parts. The only thing I find problematic with this song is that it flirts a little bit with the introduction, almost sounding a little bit like Pretty Woman. This can also be considered maybe a part for the second wind in the album that is completely lacking further on. When we come into the following song being Bird with a broken wing. Just back to depression, but with a little bit of words, I hope. It doesn't matter if you're seen broken, you can still express yourself, but quite frankly, I'd rather express myself with NWA's Express Yourself. Using the 38 piece amazingly with bringing the volume down for those low moments and only just to bring it back like the Backstreet Boys. Hoping this is really the turning point in the song, only to be disappointed to roll into Dead Roses. Look, from here on out, this doesn't really get much better. I mean, the only next track that I could say is pretty good is Everything Happens for a Reason, which you could consider to be an 80s sitcom theme song, which would be great if in the musical that this may just play in the future on the back streets of Broadway. And this is where it really should end. I mean, with amazing lyrics like Splish Splash, it just really hits home. But we end the album on La Brie Tapit, which is La Brea.
How many times did you listen to the song, Brie boy?
I don't know. A lot, actually. La Brea Tapit is the ending song, and the only thing interesting about this is it's the tar pit that is in California, and this is where this album should end. For me, because I don't care for it, it's a Weezer album, I've never been a fan, and the only thing that's really interesting that was brought to this whole album was the 38 piece. Everything along with this could really stay back in the 90s with Weezer's main sound and performance that really has not changed since the start. If this is just a parody for the whole album, I do not know, but this is quite fun into believing that they could turn this into a musical with Radiohead. All in all, for Weezer fans, this is a 7. This is my second ranking I'm going to give. For people who aren't a Weezer fan, being me, this can go get fucked. Matthew.
That's much better. He's finally gone. We can actually listen to the review. So, this is a Baroque pop album by Weezer. It is fun the whole way through. I think Brin hinted towards the fact that the large part of the instrumentation is with the orchestra, and that is the draw card for this particular album. They do quite a lot with the orchestration to try and keep the music interesting throughout. I'd rather spend some time rebutting whatever points sort of Brin made. So the first thing I found difficult with his assessment of the album was the fact that he disliked the album despite, I think, liking half the tracks, which usually would be a pass grade, and towards the end didn't really express reason for the dislike. I think it was they disliking Weezer because they're Weezer, which is, you know, akin to giving no objection at all. The other thing that I found sort of funny was the last couple of tracks you mentioned were the weaker parts of the album, but I feel like the concept of the album as a whole, almost like in a humanism sort of sense, in the name of OK Computer, is obviously a take on OK Computer, but meant to be the antithesis of OK Computer. So you couldn't ever have them together. They're actually diametrically opposed in the way that they're concerned. The last two tracks are almost dichotomous, and I think that they're interesting because they're dichotomous, right? So you have the track, you know, Here Comes the Rain, gonna wash all my troubles away. It's this uplifting track. It's almost the singing in the rain for the 2020s. But then it leads into the La Brea Tar Pits song, which is basically a reflection on Rivers Cuomo, Weezer, generally speaking, being something of an artifact, a dinosaur fighting for relevance. And you listen to the entirety of the album. The entirety of the album is played sweetly to Disney-esque perfection, except for literally the last note. The literal last held string note is entirely discordant, almost as if to undermine the cheery nature of what has come beforehand. I think really ultimately humanizing what was otherwise a fairly overly happy album. So like in terms of my preference or sort of feelings towards it, at its core, it's probably more pop than it is anything else. The pop hooks in a lot of the songs are actually really quite catchy. Anyone who listens to Grapes of Wrath and doesn't walk away going, you know, headphone, Grapes of Wrath, are kidding themselves. Funnily enough, you know, All My Favorite Songs probably is one of the weaker tracks on the album, generally because it's a little bit lethargic and cliche. But you have tracks like Alu Gobi, which is just, you know, great. You know, I'm agoraphobic, you know, my butt will hurt, which is literal lines from the song. But, you know, Walking Down Montana, just sticks in your ear like an earworm, doesn't go away. Numbers, I feel entirely beside myself whenever the Fibonacci sequence makes an appearance. Hidden in the layering towards the end of the track is, you know, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and I'm happy. The song, I think, really does quite a good job of talking about the dehumanizing element of numbers, which is obviously one of the core tenets of I guess, computing, which there are some of these comparisons made throughout the album towards not wanting to be that way inclined. Songs like Screens are probably some of the weaker songs that try to show that difference, but songs like Numbers, I think, do actually quite a good job. The chorus line, I think, is something of, it's emotive, whilst the lyrics are clever in their simpleness. You know, I hear the sadness in your laughter, which I think does quite a good job of conveying the meaning that it wants. Playing My Piano, great song. Kim Jong, Blow Up My City, You Never Know. Thanks for taking the best line from the song, Brin. But it does quite a good job of bouncing between a lot of different modes. You know, even so much so that the lyrics describe the modes with which they're moving from, you know, dipping down from major to mixolydian, for instance. You then have it folding straight into mirror image, which is an extension, it feels, to Playing My Piano, but it's no longer the context of Playing My Piano. It's entirely a self-reflective piece regarding Rivers Cuomo, or whoever has written it, and their indebtedness to whoever their life partner is. That's clearly the intention there. I think all in all, Bird with Broken Wings and Dead Roses, you could probably take them or leave it. Although Dead Roses does use the word oubliette, which I have yet to hear a song properly incorporate the word oubliette, so that's pretty cool. All in all, I think this album does a really good job of staying true to what Weezer does best generally, and it's right, catchy, poppy hooks, but they do it with, I guess, Disney flair is probably the best way to put it. There's almost nothing offensive about that album, so if you're looking for something dirty, you're not going to miss it. The tonality is a little bit more subtle, but I think it's in its subtlety and its fairly easy accessibility that this album shines. I think in terms of Weezer's albums lately, this actually does quite a good job. It's quite a good listen. It's entirely inoffensive. You can put it on and continue life as you were, and it isn't too demanding of your time. If I was to give it a score, I would probably give it a 7.5. Thank you, Brin. And I would definitely encourage anyone to go and have a listen to it. The orchestration is actually really quite complex, and probably the draw card for people who aren't Weezer fans. If you're a Weezer fan, well, the hooks are going to keep you more interested than some of their latest work anyway. So, great album. Yeah, really, really good album. Solid track listing. Yeah, go listen to it. And that's my rebuttal.
Okay, so you enjoyed the album.
Yeah. Oh. I thought the album was fun to listen to.
Yeah.
Are you off mute?
Yeah, I'm off mute.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the album was fun to listen to. It was, at its core, just a pop album, really. The hooks are very inoffensive, very catchy.
You find yourself singing along. The lyrics were not exactly complex. What was that one word you said that they use?
Oubliette.
Yeah, what's that mean?
Basically,
Is it
it's like a
French?
dungeon, yeah.
It's French for a dungeon.
Yeah, so that song really gives me like Beauty and the Beast vibes, you know. Dead Roses, you know, at the bottom of the oubliette, you know.
Yeah.
That it's very much a Beauty and the Beast feel, and that's the one that sounds probably most Disney to my ear.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas the rest of it, because of the theming, is a little bit more accessible and doesn't put me off so much. Because usually the Disney theming would probably put me off, but Alu Gobi, like, that track is catchy as hell.
No shit.
Walking down Montana, whoa.
That's what they do best. This is what Weezer normally pulls out as their signature move.
Yeah. And the material's fun and interesting. And I think that there is enough there. There are some low points, like Bird with a Broken Wing. Really, I couldn't care for.
I could not give a shit about Dead Roses. After going from Bird with a Broken Wing and then into Dead Roses, I always thought it was just beating it into the ground by then.
So
I was getting real bored.
So yeah, I mean, if you're not into it, it's tough to sort of stay with it. But it's funny because like those songs take it into a very sort of conceptual space, because you have Bird with a Broken Wing and Dead Roses are actually the most abstract in terms of the lyrics. They don't really pertain to anything that's immediately obvious from the protagonist's perspective. So like every other song, Rivers Cuomo is talking about how songs make him sad and how people he likes, he hates them or whatever. And the entire album is talking about him to some extent, and then those two songs don't.
Yeah.
One's literally about a bird with a broken wing, and so much so that the verse lyrics are, I guess, direct metaphors for that.
I would have said that Bird with a Broken Wing is a metaphor for being broken or beaten down.
But it's no longer Rivers Cuomo saying me. It's he's doing it through the lens of this bird.
Yeah, okay, so through another character.
Yeah. And the cat tried to get him, but he flew up and away, right?
With a broken wing.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
And then the last two tracks I feel are like the sum total of his outlook. He's not too bummed by it, although he has things to be bummed by. But the thing that seems to draw the most sourness out of him is the fact that there is a loss of relevance, which I think is potent. And I really like that last note. When I heard the album the first time, it was just this discordant thing.
The last note.
Yeah, the last orchestrated note is discordant.
And you mean in the last song?
The last song, the last held note of the last song is discordant. I think it's entirely meant to paint the picture that things really aren't as sweet and cheery as this bright, peppy, Baroque pop album seems to suggest basically throughout the entirety of it.
Well, I would say it's a very more of a energetic, uplifting depression song, almost like an energized emo.
There's nothing particularly emo about it, though. So like,
it's just sad. There's a lot of sad and depressing moments.
Yeah, but literally every album we've listened to, that's a motif, right?
Yeah.
So it's the method with which you are expressing that, and this album it sounds happy, right?
But it's not really.
It's not, but it's not either.
Okay, it's along the lines of pushing it, like, it's not as bad as it really may seem.
Yeah.
Like, there's low points and there's high points, and then it's just getting through it. I mean, that's why when it comes to Rain on Me,
Here Comes the Rain.
Here Comes the Rain, and that's why I declare it as a sitcom theme song.
It's just, to me, it sounds like Singing in the Rain.
Yeah, I guess it's like a modern Singing in the Rain, but I can just see this being just a happy 2020 Friends ending song.
Yeah, which is why I don't mind it, because he's talking about, like, one of the lyrics in it is, the rain came down, because something else bit the dust. So he's talking about aspects of himself that he's washing away. That's, I feel, what the song is about, which is why I enjoy the fact that La Brea Tar Pits is the last song, because that's the song that has the contemplative, maybe I'm not as satisfied as I let on vibe to it. And so I think the best part of the album is the fact that there are these sort of peaks and troughs in terms of what they're trying to go for conceptually. So whilst the lyricism seems to be fairly straightforward, there are plenty of points where it isn't, I think the concept does a pretty good job of carrying through. Okay, Human.
Okay. I'm out of my phone.
You may.
Anything else you want to add?
Nah, I mean, like you, I think there is a cap to how many times you would want to listen to the album.
Yeah.
I'm happy to listen to it again, but I might give it a rest for a little bit.
Yeah, for quite a while.
But I think 7.5 is a pretty fair. It's pretty well constructed. The orchestra sounds really good.
It is great, but whenever you use an orchestra, it normally sounds really great anyway.
Yeah, but someone still has to figure out the pieces and choose how it should fit tonally with the songs. And you have a whole year in lockdown, you're probably going to work it out, I guess. Yeah. But I think they did a good job.
Would you call this a great pandemic album?
Yeah, it might be. I mean, they were able to release this one, whereas the album they wanted to release last year, they couldn't. So, I mean, clearly they're capable of releasing it with the pandemic in the background, so sure.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
All right, next week.
Yeah, what do we listen to?
You already know, pretty much.
I guessed.
Psychedelic Porn Crumpets, Shigar, the Sunlight Mound.
Hell yeah.
And this is going to be pretty awesome, getting back into some rock and psychedelic.
We're going to have like a bit of a psychedelic binge, I get the feel.
Well, we're coming up to LG. LW.
LG, life's good, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Which we will have to, off camera, discuss how we're going to prep for the 16 albums.
A lot of coffee.
We're not going to sit here and do it. That's like a whole day. Oh, we're going to do it. We'll talk about it off screen. All right. We're CDR. I got my ass kicked. You can see that he's a wordsmith. Later.
Bye-bye.
I think the best part about that album, it was 30 minutes long.
This is fucking psychedelic.
This is creepy as fuck.